What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Combat SMG versus the Stinger SMG. I feel like a lot of people have just been ignoring the Combat SMG completely because of how overpowered the Stinger SMG was last season. But the Combat SMG actually has some ways that it's much better than the Stinger, and depending on your playstyle and like ability to control recoil, the Combat SMG could just be straight up better than the Stinger SMG for you. If you guys do enjoy this video or find it helpful, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and comment down below which you prefer between the Combat SMG or the Stinger SMG. And I also stream on Twitch. It will be linked down in the description below, but it's just Evolve Jake, just like my YouTube channel name is. To start, we're going to talk about the things these two things do like similarly or identically, and that is that they both have the same fire rate at 12, so it's not like one shoots much faster than the other. A lot of people look to fire rate when we talk about SMGs because this is really going to be indicative of how often you can get shots through builds, but they have the same fire rate, so in theory they should be both just as good at spraying through builds, and they both have very little bloom. There kind of is slight differences, but they both basically have really little bloom for an SMG, so they're about even in that regard, and they have very similar mag sizes. The Stinger SMG has 35 rounds in the mag, the Combat SMG has 32, so it's basically the same in the mag. The key differences between these weapons is going to be damage and recoil. The Combat SMG has more base damage than the Stinger SMG, and then it also has a higher headshot multiplier, resulting in much higher headshot damage. A lot of the Combat SMG rarities headshot for 40 plus, where I think the gold Stinger SMG barely hits 30. So that matters. It's only like 10 damage or so difference, but when you're hitting shots consecutively with these SMGs and your Combat SMG is hitting for 44 to the head, you're going to melt people and delete them before they even really know what happens. I've had instances in Chapter 3 Season 2 where I die to a Combat SMG up close and it feels like it killed me much faster than like the drum shotgun did. This thing melts, and it does melt faster than the Stinger SMG if you're able to hit shots consecutively and if you're able to hit headshots. The reason why it might be difficult to do so is that the Combat SMG does have a decent amount of recoil. I find it to be somewhat manageable. It's mostly vertical, and you can just kind of pull down slightly on your analog stick or mouse when shooting the weapon, and you can control the recoil just fine. It doesn't really have any sort of horizontal recoil, and that's typically going to be the harder type of recoil to adjust for. But Combat SMG is just straight vertical, pull down a little bit and you'll be fine. Even though it is somewhat easy to control when you ADS, I feel like hipfire wise, it does get really awkward to control the recoil. And if you're in somewhat of an awkward fight in someone's box, obviously we can't build right now in pubs, but in the future, if you're in an awkward fight where you're in somebody's box and you just like exchange shotgun shots and then you're spamming, it could get difficult to control the recoil of this weapon while hipfiring. So I think that is one way in which the Stinger SMG is much better, is that it's just much easier to use. Since it has basically no recoil, whether you ADS or hipfire, it makes the Stinger SMG to where it's going to be a lot more consistent for most players. I think it is something where if you're a good player and you put in the time and learn to like counter the recoil perfectly when hip firing, the Combat SMG will be better, but it's more of a skill thing. If you have the skill to control recoil and track your target well, the Combat SMG is probably going to be the choice for you. But if you want to just use the weapon that's easier to use and still consistent and still very good, the Stinger SMG is probably going to be the choice for you. I'd recommend trying them both. One advantage the Stinger SMG does have, in addition to being much easier to use, is that it does do more damage to builds, which is pretty interesting. It has like a pretty high build multiplier. So while the Combat SMG does more damage just straight up, the Stinger SMG does more damage to builds, and they have the same fire rate. So in theory, you should be getting shots through builds as frequently, like similar with the weapon, since they have the same fire rate. But since the Stinger SMG does more damage to builds, if you're just fighting against somebody who's turbo building walls continuously, you're likely going to get more chances to shoot somebody through a build with the Stinger SMG than you will the Combat SMG, because it's going to be breaking the walls faster. The fire rate is the same, so like I said, the likelihood of hitting them through the wall is the same, but since you're breaking walls faster, you're going to get more chances to shoot through the wall. So the Stinger SMG is probably going to be better at just frying builds and shooting people through walls or getting shots through walls. And that is one advantage the Stinger SMG does have over the Combat SMG. Like I said, can't build right now, but in the future you will be able to build again in Fortnite pub. So it's kind of important to talk about that. And like I said, the Stinger SMG is going to be better for some people that find it easier to use, and it's not like the Stinger SMG is a bad choice at all. Sure, the Combat SMG does do more damage, but if you're someone who cannot get used to the recoil, The Stinger SMG is going to be just fine. If you can't get used to the recoil and you can't control it, you're going to be better off using the thing that you hit shots with more consistently than using the thing where you miss more shots but do more damage. In the long run, hitting shots consistently will win out if you are unable to control the Combat SMG's recoil. And like I said, it's not like the Stinger SMG is a bad choice at all. Before a week ago, it was probably the most overpowered SMG in Fortnite history. And like if I told you last week, hey, they're going to add this Combat SMG and it's going to be even better than the Stinger, you wouldn't believe me at all, because the Stinger SMG was just so notorious in Chapter 3 Season 1 for being one of the best spray weapons we've ever had in the game. So that's going to be it for this video. I think the Combat SMG is better, especially if you're playing the no builds mode. I think the Combat SMG is really good, but I may switch back to the Stinger SMG when builds come back and I have to get more of like those hipfire fights. But let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if you want to watch me live, it'll be linked down in the description below. I'm going to let some gameplay play out from a recent game I had on stream. If you guys like this, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Shooting me through walls. Okay.
I think it's going to overheat.
You got out.
Dead.
Nice. I swear they teleported at least 3
Yeah,
times
that
in
was
my
so
stream.
weird. There's people right in front of us on this hill.
Yep. Cracked left.
Nice.
Whited twice. He just shockwaved far.
Okay, I'll come back, I guess.
On this like valley, so it should be good position for us. I'm gonna guess somewhere in the bush. Yeah.
Knocked one.
32. I'm moving up to the bridge.
2v2.
Here, one right under. Holy shit, bro. Oh my god. Wow. I cracked one.
Is he on your body?
One's on the bridge. Yeah. Nice. Nice. I almost choked that. Thanks.
They just jumped at you.
Yeah, I heard the guy that was like under the bridge in one